Hello, and welcome to Khyber Shards, a 5th edition actual play set in the Eberron campaign world. It's Friday, so we have a KSA tonight. Colin and I are out of breath. We just finished recording the episode that will come out in 4 weeks, the last episode of December. And
I genuinely said as soon as we stopped recording, how am I supposed to do KSA right now? How am I supposed to do this? This is a war crime.
We're gonna give it our best, though. Come back in 4 weeks, and
at the very least, I can pretty confidently say that's the best 15 minutes we've ever had.
The end of that episode is real good. There's just been some good ones in this arc.
Things are firing right now, man.
I feel real good about this arc that the crew is on right now, where you are as the viewers. I only feel slightly bad about where things are in this arc. Mostly, I feel real good about where things are. This is good.
This don't want to stop. I want to be playing still. Oh my!
I know,
God,
right?
That was.
Alas, adulthood. All right, we'll stop teasing the viewers. So we have a bunch of questions. For Colin.
Hey, we made it to 100, by the way, and I'm here now.
Yeah.
Woo. Thanks, everybody, for that.
Yeah. And we begin with Mia, who asked on our 100th review, not our 100th reviewed, but the review from the 100th episode. For everyone, is there any character relationship that has occurred that you weren't expecting? Are you surprised by any particular plot turn?
Hi, Mia. Yes. If you would have asked me to predict character relationships when we started, there's no way that in my first long campaign I would ever have thought that Eric and I would not be playing intimate characters. The growth between Pog and Ari that has grown. So the opposite of a relationship, the distancing of friends, has consistently surprised me. It's extra surprising and challenging when it's happening with someone that you have remained very close to for 20 years. To play something that's so opposite of how we've been, that I definitely would have thought that we'd have deepened that original idolization from the start of the series. Otherwise, I'm surprised. We haven't touched on it in a while, but I really, really enjoyed the relationship between Mrs. B and Pog. That one felt really natural. There was something so earnest about that. I think that even at 100 episodes, you're the only person that knows why that was so attractive to Pog. To be able to have those conversations. And also, it surprised me because I didn't know if I would be willing to step out and role play on that kind of a level, to just go have a soft, quiet conversation with an NPC. That's the joys of having a best friend run the game and trusting in that moment.
Yeah. I have definitely felt the benefit. I mean, this is why I like playing with friends. This is why, I know a lot of shows that are done by professionals, of course, do casting calls and everything and run the whole thing very professionally. And I think I would just have a really hard time doing that because I don't think I'm not a good enough actor, I think, to play that intimately with someone that I don't know. Because even the little bit of acting that I did was in college was with people I knew, and so the ability to just be free and act and play that vulnerably, I think, is a real benefit for me at least, of playing with friends. Someone who's a more skilled actor could probably do it with people they don't know, but I'm not. So it's one of the reasons I like playing with friends.
As for a particular plot turn that surprised me, this is Philip they have all surprised me. And I genuinely mean that. I can't think of one right now. Right
15
now,
minutes ago.
yes, there is exactly a moment that is a plot turn that I never saw coming. And you already know it, and I will get to show you me finding it out in a few weeks. That's the moment, and I'm sorry to cheapen the first 100 episodes. In this moment, I can't think of anything that hit me the way that did. That just our game's different. Our game has changed.
If I had to guess, the one that involves Pog that I really loved doing, and partly because it was very spontaneous. I didn't expect Pog to be where he was to set this up, and knew I had wanted to go in this direction, but you very spontaneously gave me the opportunity to do it
At the church?
in a moment I wasn't expecting. But yeah, going to the church, and when the flame says Pog's name, watching that register with you was very fun. Watching you hear it and then go, wait a minute. Like that was I really enjoyed that plot twist with Pog. Everybody's kind of got that moment, and it's all of them relate to the secrets. Like with Ari, it's Eric already knew most of Ari's, but it's the first time we really started to, when Puzzle Dust called him forgettable. That was fun. When Shade started to learn about Shade to lie, and then of course when I got to drop the bomb about the mark of death from Jalair, that was all very fun. So for me, most of the ones that are all about when I finally got to show you what I had come up with, this thing you guys gave me, that was really fun. And you still see my goggle marks from 3 hours.
I loved that moment too, because I found it surprising from a player knowledge level and from a character level that it would be a tie to a religion that my character doesn't have any connection to. I really enjoyed that because, it's the finding something where you're exactly not looking for it.
Yeah.
Laura has asked, how old is Demise?
So I mean, it wouldn't be super apparent to the players, but it's also not, I think, a spoiler to answer this, so I will. I don't have a number for Demise. Demise is an adult. She's not adolescent, and she is an experienced adult elf. So she is, I would say, probably over 100 years old, but not a lot. So that's well over adulthood. I mean, she's, as I've said, elves mature physically at the same pace as humans, but she is an elf who has completed all of the training that she would go through and done all of her learning, both at home and abroad when she left home. I don't know whether we'll get to learn much of Demise's backstory or not, and so I don't want to go much beyond that because I know what Demise's backstory is, and I think it would be fun. And just because it's happened, Laura, stay off the Eberron wiki about Demise.
Oh.
Yeah, Demise is not a character I invented. Demise is a Keith Baker original. Demise comes out of the original Eberron campaign setting from 3rd edition. Keith Baker provides a couple of different characters as suggested recurring rivals, not necessarily villains, but rivals. And Demise and Hallis Martaine are the two characters that he presents. So it was fun to get to include both of them. So yes, so I did not invent Demise. So there's actual lore out, and I'm using her backstory. So don't look it up. Unless you don't care about spoilers, in which case, whatever. Darren asks, how does it feel to play through an arc taking place outside Stormreach for the first time? Being an Eberron newbie, this is your first time outside of Stormreach.
It is. It's terrifying. It's terrifying because the more that I have learned, and again, I can't go into tonight, the more I have learned about everything that is not Stormreach, this world is terrifying. It is. There is just so much bad out there in this world. I don't know. It's exciting. It's been a lot of fun. It's one of those challenging situations where we're playing an event. And so it's not like I'm getting the time to study there. You know, we're not spending, there's no spoiler where they're at. We're not spending days there. We're not, you know, diving into the culture of the area. So, it's really intimidating to feel isolated. Like the things that we've been on, we've really never been totally alone. We've either been in Civilization where we knew people or people knew us, or we went to Blackbriar and we took people or people took us there. We don't have people here. This is us. I mean, we've got like a third of a ship captain. I don't think he's more committed than a third to us. Like he's only in for the penny, not for the pound.
That's fair. He's very chill about things.
Yeah, he is ride or, but not die. He will ride. He will not die for us. Darren also asks you, have you had a conversation with the players to tell them that NPCs don't need to follow the same rules as PCs, like Demise's trained skeletons, or does this group just take that as a given?
I haven't had a conversation with them, and I'll tell you, I know exactly why it doesn't occur to me to have that conversation. Although I could totally see, I've played with all of these players long enough to know with certainty that none of them were going to feel, you know, well, wait a minute, that's not how Create Undead works, because it's not. Create Undead would take a lot more components, things like that. Although this is not the stat block that Demise uses, but the Necromancer, the updated Necromancer NPC stat block can actually create a bunch of skeletons at once, which I think is an improvement for an adversary, but would be crazy powerful for a player. And I know exactly why I don't think to have that conversation is because I cut my D&D teeth on 4th edition, and in 4th edition you didn't build villains, you didn't build adversaries with player levels. Like they just had their own individual stat block. It was a unique creature. And I really like that. I really like that because sometimes it is nice. And I try to identify when a player can tell that someone's, you know, all the spells that Demise use other than the zombie ritual are actual D&D spells, so that you can recognize them usually. But I also like that. I like it when villains are built for the encounter. If the villain gets to pick the encounter, like I built Demise for an encounter where she's got some minions, and so she carries around the makings of some minions. And I gave her a little bit of an excuse by having her use some dragon shards to, like, you know, enhance that kind of thing. But I like that especially in this kind of set piece encounters, giving an adversary specialized abilities makes the encounter, I think, a lot more interesting and dynamic. And so that's why I tend not to worry about that. But I absolutely can see with a different group that if you have a group that maybe you have a lot of dungeon masters in the group, or you just have a group that's full of, I don't use this term pejoratively, but the rules lawyer type of player, the player that knows the rules really well and is going to expect the rules to be followed strictly, that would be an important conversation to have. My players know that I play fast and loose with the rules, and so I assume they kind of expect that. And Eric and RA probably know the rules well enough to have been able to theoretically call out, you know, that's not how Create Undead works. But both through Eric is also kind of a fast and loose rule of cool player, and I think Ra inclines that direction as well. So I just don't think they would. So that's a long and rambling way of answering your very straightforward question. But I think just by knowing me, they take it as a given that the rules of an NPC are whatever I have written down on the stat block, which is usually an actual stat block that I've just modified a little bit to give them something interesting to do. Or in the case of Demise, to just create more monsters. And also to make it clear what Demise was going to do. Like that was also part of the purpose of the skeletons is I needed Shade and Pog to understand what Demise was going to do.
Which they did real
time.
quick.
Yes, very fast. Yeah, it was
from the player
fast.
perspective, I think you're 100% right. The fast and loose hits on both sides. You're the guy who goes, make me a pitch. And we can let things work if they seem like they could. Like if it's not completely outside. I mean, I couldn't make my echo explode. Like that's
right.
not a thing. But we'll let some other things maybe happen, because why wouldn't you be able to?
Sure.
And also in this particular situation, I bring my video game into my tabletop, and like boss fight rules are different. Boss fights get different mechanics than the regular enemies for me. So I don't bat an eye. That's just okay. So this is how she does things. This is how the world works for her. So
yeah. Cool. Then Nathan asks, is Pog trying to get Solarka to break up with him, or is he just really bad at relationships, or is Colin trying to get Solarka to break up with Pog?
If you take the last half of the first sentence and the first half of the last sentence, you'll get it. It's that Colin is really bad at relationships. No, honestly, this is a failing of me as a player. I get there's no world in which Pog, left to his own devices, would not have gone and had these conversations. There just isn't. That's not the character I've portrayed until the moment for that, when my player brain gets so caught up with the Pog wants to be doing, Pog wants to be action and accomplishing things, that I honestly, I just move past to my own detriment, thinking about those things. And full disclosure, maybe that's the challenge of doing something for a YouTube series, because there are parts of my brain that go, that's not going to be very interesting. I don't think I would want to watch that. Like taking off for this trip, and I promise you this is not me. Philip and I will have an independent conversation about consequences. This isn't me trying to shade anything in front of you guys. We talked for so long before doing this that Colin was prepared to go. And Pog, if you rewatch, had been like, so what are we doing? What's the play? Are we going?
Yeah.
Are we not going? And he's been that way game time for quite a while. Like since we got back from Blackbriar. Like, are we doing it or are we not doing it? Just say what we're doing. Just stop talking. And by the time that it was, all right, get ready, Colin was so ready to leave and do something that I inexcusably just went, I wouldn't want to watch me talk to Solarka. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to pitch more conversation now after 3 trips to Thora's office and a trip to a nightclub, and then coming back to have another conversation about the previous 2 days worth of conversation. That's the downside to making something as content, as I was like, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't watch personally. I'd love to see those conversations. I'd love to play those conversations as the player. But by the time we're 40 minutes into an episode, I'm like, yeah, we need to go to the next place. Like, yeah, this ends at a certain point. So that's all. Pog has never had anything but affection for Solarka. From boyish attraction to genuine affection. It's me misplaying those moments. he'll suffer for it, but it's Colin misplaying. It is not Pog. That's not the man he is or wants to be.
And how far is Pog willing to go to reclaim Fury's Edge?
Well, I know that answer. But to be honest with you, I guess we can pull the curtain back on this. You and I had conversations a few months ago about dismantling Fury's Edge. Fury's Edge to Pog had always felt like a very powerful weapon he had earned, but had never been his. And if you go back to the first KSA I was on, we talk about the wanting to have your statue in the town square. And every time Fury's Edge got pulled out, everyone was like, oh, Kolos, not Pog. And so that's, if it doesn't come back, it'll definitely be missed. But we'll move forward. And as of right now, I'm the only person with the dragon shards and money to get another super awesome weapon. So, won't be missed for too terribly long.
Fair.
Nathan asks you, what are the speeds of airships and lightning rails in your Eberron? Because they were half expecting Malcolm to tell Ezri and Ari he couldn't catch a train.
Yeah, so if you look in the Eberron source books, you will learn that the top speed of a lightning rail is 30 miles an hour, and the top speed of an airship is 20 miles an hour. And that obviously means that Malcolm can't catch the train. I didn't look that up, and I didn't until your question was asked. I remembered lightning rails being about 30 miles an hour. I didn't remember the speed of an airship. But honestly, the answer is less satisfying. How fast are airships and lightning rails in my Eberron? They're fast. They're fast. They're fast enough for it to be cool that we're having a fight on top of a speeding lightning rail, with the ground, whipping past us. And the airship is, in this case, fast enough to catch up to a lightning rail, because it should be. Because we should have this cool moment where Ari and Esri try to get down onto the lightning rail, because you need to be able to play the train job episode of Firefly in Eberron.
Yeah, 100%.
I feel pretty strongly that needs to be possible, and so fast enough. So I mean, really, that's what it is. I don't worry a lot about that unless it's absolutely necessary to. I mean, there are a few situations where you really do need to know. But other than that kind of situation where you really have to calculate something, I don't worry about it. And even then, if it was like, can we get there faster than they can get there? Maybe. That's what does the story kind of call for? This is very much an area where I don't worry very much about the speed, about the precision in the numbers. I worry about the what's going to be narratively satisfying. Now, I mean, later on, if we got into an airship that was comparable to Malcolm's and tried to catch a train, it would be unfair for me to go, well, airships only go 20 miles an hour and lightning rails go 30. Like, I have created a precedent that would make it unfair for me to do that in the future. So I do, while I am playing fast and loose with the written term statistics, I do feel bound by my own precedent here. I would need to at least say, well, this is a bigger cargo version of an airship and it's not as fast, or something like that. There would need to be a narrative reason, and there would need to be a narrative reason for me to say that. It wouldn't just be, sorry, you can't. So yes, as fast as I think the story calls for them to be.
I like the idea of a vehicle being able to reach a speed that's different from what it could maintain also,
Yeah, I think that's also true. Is 30 miles an hour is probably what 30 miles an hour and 20 miles an hour respectively are probably what Houses Orion and Lyrindar say are the safe operating speeds in the training manual.
Right.
But Malcolm doesn't really seem like a manual kind of guy. So, yeah.
Oh, why can't I just have a beer with Malcolm? Life would be so much easier if Pog and Malcolm just hung out.
Laura would like to state that it's impossible for Pilarka to break up.
Okay, canon. You heard it here. Then they would like to know what was Demise trying to accomplish the last few times we've seen her? Does she have character classes? Did you expect the players to push back against taking her with them?
Okay, so I can answer all those questions pretty easily. Well, the first time, she happened to be on the trail of the same thing that the party were in the process of stealing. She was going to steal that map. As we know from the Flash sides, the Emerald Claw were also chasing that map with the help of the world famous Hallis Martain. And now we know Demise is with the Emerald Claw. And so Demise was looking for the same thing that the players were looking for. Second question. The second time in the arena, that was a terrorist attack. That's what Demise was intending to do. Is she was
as a terrorist
working with her terrorist organization to commit an act of terrorism at a sporting event.
So just villains being villainous?
Yeah.
Bad guys being bad?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking.
Yes. Listen, man, the manual, the rule book says the Emerald Claw is there to be a group of villains that the players don't have to worry about whether or not they ought to negotiate.
Roger that.
So they be villaining. And then the last one, does she have character? Next one, does she have character classes? Not really. Sort of. She has abilities that I've pulled from character classes based on her description in the old source book, which is that she is a multi-classed artificer and necromancer wizard. And so the things that she can do are adapted from those two classes, is the answer to that. So she has a couple of artificer infusions on her that haven't come up yet. And her spells are necromantic, obviously. And then did I expect the players to push back against... Yes. Yes, I thought they would say no. A creepy elf woman named Demise shows up and says, I'm going with you. Yes, I didn't... So it was cut because it was pre-recording, but in the pre-recording chatter, when we were getting the virtual tabletop set up for this most recent episode, Colin noticed that I had a battle map set up that was a fight at the bottom of the barrel between Demise and her Emerald Claw cronies, because I absolutely had it set up for the players to turn her down, and then she tries to ambush them on their way out of the bottom of the barrel, and either they chase her off or defeat her, or we have this cool chase up to the airship and they jump on the airship and go, and it's cool. So that was intended to be a combat to punctuate what had been quite a lot of talky episodes, and I knew that there was going to be a little more talky episodes getting to Trollenport and doing the investigation. So I built a little action scene in there, and just underestimated the ability of Esri to just go with it.
Like, when did he like anybody, much less a stranger? And by that point, like, Colin knew this isn't a good person, but Pog has already been so far down the road of, let's get on this. We're doing this for you, Esri. Like, let's go. So when he goes, it's my new friend. Yeah, all right, whatever. Okay.
I mean, in hindsight, to where we are now in the recording, I'm really glad they did, because if for no other reason than the extremely funny use of the word demise that has been allowed constantly, has been a great deal of fun. And I've enjoyed just cranking up how obviously creepy she is over the course of it, to just see exactly how far the player characters would let her go, and apparently tearing apart a security guard with zombies is on this side of the line, the not crossing the line side, and it's only killing random train passengers. That's on the other side of the line.
I mean, we don't have guards, so I don't know.
Right.
I'm not gonna assume anything about guards.
Mm-hmm.
Civilians. Yeah, we messed that one up.
Yep. Laura asks, in the conversation with Shade after the ice cream episode, Pog very firmly said he's not going to wait anymore. Have you considered if Pog would ever hit a point that he really won't wait around anymore and leaves to join Dane's group?
Yes and no. No, not necessarily to join Dane's group, but absolutely. Absolutely. I have even made preparation thinking that Pog was going to leave. Yeah, I was fully prepared for that to happen. And to be honest with you, I wasn't sure that it wasn't happening when he left the night after the decision to not join Dane. It wasn't about him even joining Dane. It was about leaving the mansion. I honestly went to the Sword and Sheath because it's the only other place that Pog would have had. Looking back, I kind of wish he would have tried to go to Miss B's because it was just the act of not being there. And, you know, although retrospect, I wouldn't wish it had been that way because I wouldn't have gone to the church, which got him back home. Yeah, there was more than 50% chance that Pog didn't come back that night to live at the mansion again.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was. Eric and I have had lots of conversation about the game, and it was one of those things where he and I have both made the agreement, like, look, we can speak openly, but we have to know that we're not going to affect things. And I was like, yeah, dude, Ari's not very far from getting Pog just out of the strike force.
Yeah,
we're almost there, and we hit that point, and yeah, there was a real good chance that when they woke up the next morning, Pog's things were all gone. I don't know what we'd have done from there.
Well, figured it out.
Yep.
In the same vein, Pog has frequently been frustrated at the lack of initiative that the strike force takes, and then when they have to hurry along and stumble their way through things because they waited so long. What do you think it would have been like for him if he had joined Dane's group from the start? And we're interpreting this as if Pog had been recruited by Dane rather than by Thora, is how I'm interpreting the question. If that's not your intent, Laura, please let us know in Discord and we'll try to get you a clearer answer.
Pog would be dead is my honest answer. And he wouldn't necessarily be unhappy about it. But yeah, Pog would have died. There is a discipline line that I think has grown from the time that Thora returned in our lives to now. There is a discipline which is being challenged in Pog, because the group under Thora has been very capable of discussing and of growing plans, but the problem is that then they second guess the original decision and they take the path of longest resistance. Dane, and I'm sorry if this isn't how you want the character to read to me, Dane has gotten everyone on his side killed since we've seen him. And granted, part of that might be on us, but he took them there, so it's on him. And everyone around Dane is a red shirt, and Pog would have been exactly the same. And so maybe he'd have come back from the first couple, but he wouldn't have come back from the last. So that's what would have happened if he had joined Dane's group in my mind. Where he is now, he's a strong enough person that I think he would be able to abandon Dane if it got to that point, because, you know, Dane has shown himself to not be the person romanticized, because no one ever is. Don't meet your heroes.
Sure.
So yeah, Pog would be dead.
Fair enough. What would Pip think of Demise?
I guarantee you he would have bamfed away as soon as possible. He is a street urchin who knows no good when he sees it. And he would have absolutely just bamfed out of her sight to make sure that he saw her and she didn't see him, because he's got a better social awareness than I think Pog does. He's pretty inept at how to converse with people, but he's very talented in knowing the good in someone, or the lack thereof.
Nice. Emily would like to know, if Pip went to a masquerade ball and had an unlimited budget that could only be spent on looking nice for the masquerade, what would he wear?
An unlimited budget. He would wear a suit of armor made of platinum. Because that looks rich. That is super rich. And his mask would have been Pog's. Very garish, very, very colorful, and feathers. That's what the mask. And it would have utterly clashed with the suit. It would have looked terrible. But to him, it would have looked like the absolute most money possibly spent. He would have had the same fashion sense as 2015 Kanye. just wearing money everywhere, whether it works or not.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a good question.
And Laura continues on Pip. If Pip had a Rubble Warren mask, what would it be? Probably not an animal, I guess, since he doesn't like animals.
Why does Pip not like animals? Did I say something at some point?
I don't think so. I don't remember. Was he allergic? Was Pip allergic?
Yeah, he's allergic to cats. He wasn't unhappy about being there.
Right.
My mom is allergic to cats, and she house sat Kratos for 3 years. We can like animals, but honestly, he probably, I don't know why it's where my brain immediately goes to, but it would be a hawk. He would have, and I know this is Eberron renewed problems, he would have a bird mask. It would absolutely be a bird mask. And also not painted. It would just be raw, maybe like sealed wood, but no paint, no decor to it, because it's the opposite of the masquerade idea. The least garish, least standout thing. That's where I go. I don't know why. There you go.
Cool. Emily asks, if episode 101 Pog could go back and give episode 1 Pog one piece of advice, what advice would Pog give?
It would probably be, say what you really think. People will get over it. Because if he would have had that approach earlier on with Ari, then when he said things, it probably wouldn't have been as harsh as it was. I'm slowly trying to play Pog as not a more honest person, because I have exclusively played him honest. But to be a more open person, which is why a lot of the irritation has come out recently. Is you can be mad that I'm irritated, but I'm going to stay irritated if I don't let out that I'm irritated. And so, the same thing that any 21-year-old would have said to their 18-year-old self, find emotional maturity faster. You're dumb. That's what it would have been.
Yeah.
And
Darren wants to know what decision ever made by Pog has been the biggest surprise to you.
Probably making the grab during the fight between the White Raven and Hallis. Yeah, making the grab. That was boy, that was a choice. that decision. I don't know. I don't regret that decision because I didn't know anything about the White Raven at all. Like, I couldn't have predicted that that's who he was going to be. And I'm very proud of playing Pog. Very Pog in that moment. But, you know, he's White Raven's not a normal person. That decision was very, very surprising. And then after that, it would probably be the decision to speak to Dane at the bar. Because when the player had Pog leave, as I said earlier, there was no desire to see Dane. It was leaving the mansion. And that's his place. That Carl has made it very clear Pog is welcome. Pog is the come and go as you will, and that's not because he's the Kolos Crusher. It's because he's Pog to Carl. I think you showed that a lot when he gave the cutout piece of the wall to Carl, and Carl was bemused and kept his irritation to himself because he knows Pog. And so deciding to go and talk to Dane and do all the drinking himself was kind of surprising because I didn't think I was going to do that. Yeah, those are the moments that stand out. Darren asks you, were you planning on potentially permanently taking the party's weapons and armor from them, or were you expecting them to get their stuff before chasing after Lucan?
This question is from Emily.
Oh, I'm sorry, Emily. I read Darren right above you. Yes, it's Emily.
Yeah. No, I was not planning to permanently take away the party's weapons and armor from them. I'm fascinated by the result of that in terms of what it does to everybody's armor class, particularly, is very, very harsh.
Yeah.
Not as much Pog because barbarians get a boost.
I'm just weak. I just can't hit.
No, I absolutely wasn't. And in the moment, so we're almost to the end of this adventure, the written part of this adventure, and so I'm going to do a review, a KSA where I just talk through what changed. But one of the things that definitely changed is the way that encounter is supposed to end, or is assumed to end, which is with everybody in the custody of Ondair. And Nea is supposed to end up, or is intended to end up, as someone you can be allies with and who will help you get along, and get on the train and everything like that. So the assumption of the adventure is not that you are running out of the embassy in with hot pursuit. So the intention in the adventure is to have a fun little moment where the party are without some of their resources and can't try to deal with Lucan when they find him as easily by direct combat. That is obviously not how it played out. So yeah. And I mean, that's a fairly predictable possibility. It's not like, well, the obvious thing was they should have ended up peaceably talking with Nea, because it's deliberately a really insanely chaotic scene. So it's not like a weird thing. And I would be deeply surprised if lots of DMs who have run this adventure didn't end up with something similar. Right. So it's not super surprising, although in the moment I began to think about it as like, Fury's
so
Edge
did Colin.
and Noah's Talon are in lockers. Yeah.
Ari's armor.
So it's harsh in this particular moment. because of some of the things that the party are carrying. But no, it certainly wasn't my intention. I was expecting them to be able to get their stuff on the way out. And just the chaos of the scene is not how it played out.
Boy, understatement.
Yeah. Emily also asks, maybe I'm misremembering, but why does Pog think that a vote on the Dane Thora issue will help anything, since the strike force is evenly split on that issue?
He doesn't think it does. In the moment, that was a call for me to be able to justify leaving to go with him. It was one last chance. Let's do this, and then if we don't do this, I will. The conversation didn't lead that to be true feeling, but that was the reason for the call. Pog was ready to go, ready to go do this thing, because everybody kept putting, those against kept putting their eyes on the idea of consequences that are possible. And Pog was focused on the consequences that were avoidable. And
yeah,
you know, it wasn't about joining Dane's side. It was about joining Dane's mission. This mission. Because, and I stand by it to this day, I think that the argument that was made for not joining him endangers everything that the school stands for. And I think it was an action that betrayed the entire idea of having a secure, safe place, is to endanger everywhere except that place for the future. That was the wrong call. And Pog was up to his elbows in that emotion at the moment. So that was a preparation to leave, was the reason for that.
Cool. Emily also asks, what makes Pog more mad? The fact that Ari didn't go back for Fury's Edge, or Ari taking off to handle the topping jar retrieval on his own after the whole conversation on waiting instead of following Dane?
More irritated the Fury's Edge. He should have just ran out that way and grabbed the stuff on his way and then continued his journey. He theoretically, and it hasn't been proven otherwise, could have just grabbed the stuff from the checkout tent that we walked in through. I can say that because he didn't try, so we don't know that it couldn't have happened. Angry, going for the topping jar. It is inexcusable that you should say that we as a group need to be involved in making decisions, and then you decide you can wander off. And this led to a really interesting conversation that we can read farther down through here in the Discord. But it was a matter of, it's not that Pog needed to go. It's that, low stakes or not, you're going to do something with stakes and with consequence. Whether that consequence is to Pog or not, it's to the group because it's to Ari, which is what he had just gotten done soapboxing about. And then, to be completely honest with you, it was having it be treated as flippantly as leaving a note about it. You just made this huge issue over how we need to discuss and debate everything, but you don't have to. You can just leave us a Post-it on the fridge and we're supposed to wait around till you come back. That felt very boiling in the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
I was finished, I promise.
Okay. You've kind of addressed this, but the last sort of question is from Laura, and it is on the topic of the jar. Does Pog not understand that this Forgotten Prince thing isn't really something Ari can wait on? He's so salty about Ari soloing it without consulting everyone, but it doesn't really feel like a group decision if Ari wants to give up a memory for ice cream.
That is correct. They are not wrong, and it's not about a group decision. It's about if I were to say that I had taken up a quest with Kolos and I'd be back when I was back, there would be some feelings about that. Like, not that they needed to okay it for me or they needed to approve it. It was just like, hey, we're a family. We're a team. We should be aware of what we're doing that has elements of risk or danger. And whether he knew that the job to go get a toppings jar would have elements of danger, it was for the Forgotten Prince, which has, as Laura just said, huge consequences and urgency to it. So maybe loop us in, because we're a team. Like, no, you don't need Pog to go get an ice cream topping jar. You got this. But it'd be nice to know when I woke up where you were, because you had told me what you needed to do. And it's a scary thing to think that he's got this invisible task from the Forgotten Prince, and he thinks it's acceptable that he just bounce out to do his own thing when he deems it necessary. That's what felt flippant and disrespectful about that decision. Pog moved past it pretty quick. It was just feeling slighted and then going, yeah, all right, whatever. That's what you think of me, and accepting that reality and moving forward.
Okay. Well, that wraps up our questions for this week. Thank you all so much. These are great questions.
Yeah.
And we managed to answer them in spite of the shock that we
feeling. Tonight happened.
Tonight happened, right? We're super excited for you guys to be able to see where things go. It's fun and unexpected and chaotic in all of the right ways. So do tune in this Monday for the continuing madness of Train Top Adventures. New episodes of Khyber Shards every Monday. New Khyber Shards answers every Friday. And until next time, thanks for rolling with us.